depend on the relative abundance of hawks and doves, and a mixed strategy, a proportion of both hawks and doves may be evolutionarily stable. The evolutionarily stable mix is typically reached when the fitness of an aggressive individual hawk is balanced by the fitness of a more passive individual dove. If there are too many hawks, their high conflict and injury costs reduce their fitness, favoring doves in the population. B. The prisoner's dilemma, described above. The prisoner's dilemma is a model for cooperation between individuals. While cooperating C offers a collective advantage, defecting D gives each player a greater short-term benefit, creating the temptation to betray others. A crucial factor influencing outcomes in real-world populations is the possibility of repeated interactions where strategies like tit for tat emerge. C. The tragedy of the commons. Another application of game theory in evolutionary biology is the tragedy of the commons, a scenario where individual players overexploit a shared resource, e.g., overgrazing common land. While cooperative behavior ensures the long-term survival of the resource, short-term self-interest leads to its depletion. Evolutionarily, cooperative strategies may arise to prevent such collective disasters, but mechanisms like group selection or strong reciprocity need to stabilize cooperation. 4. Applications of evolutionary game theory in biology. Cooperation and altruism are central themes in EGT because they are often at odds with the idea that organisms always behave selfishly to maximize individual fitness. Some notable applications include mating systems and sexual selection. EGT models can be used to study sexual strategies, such as mate guarding, territory defense, and courtship rituals, where individuals balance the costs and benefits of competing for mates. Altruistic behaviors and kinship. Altruism towards kin, as discussed earlier through kin selection, can be modeled as an EGT problem where helping relatives maximizes inclusive fitness. Human behavior. Evolutionary game theory has applications in human psychology and sociology, where behaviors such as cooperation, competition, and reciprocity evolve based on social norms and cultural transmission. Microbial evolution. EGT can also explain behaviors in populations of microorganisms. Cooperation in bacterial colonies, such as producing biofilms, sharing metabolites, or mutual defense against predators, can be explained through these models. 5. Practice questions for extended topics Q1 GATE 2023. In the context of the hawk-dove game, what will happen if both hawks are more common in the population compared to doves? A. The fitness of both hawks and doves will increase. B. The population of doves will overtake hawks due to conflict costs. C. The population will stabilize with an equal number of hawks and doves. D. The fitness of hawks will be reduced due to conflict costs, favoring doves. Answer. D. The fitness of hawks will be reduced due to conflict costs, favoring doves. Explanation. As the number of hawks increases, they incur high costs in terms of injury during aggressive encounters, leading to a population imbalance that favors doves, non-aggressive individuals which avoid these costs. Q2 GATE 2020. In a prisoner's dilemma, what would likely occur in a population where the strategy of tit for tat predominates? A. Defection rates will continue to rise because tit for tat punishes defection. B. The population will reach an equilibrium where all individuals defect. C. Cooperation will evolve and be stable in the population due to reciprocal altruism. D. Cooperation will decline, as tit for tat punishes cooperation. Answer. C. Cooperation will evolve and be stable in the population due to reciprocal altruism. Explanation. Tit for tat encourages cooperation in repeated interactions by reciprocating an opponent's prior move. If both individuals cooperate initially, the game promotes continued cooperation in subsequent rounds, establishing a cooperative equilibrium. 6. Conclusion and broader impact. The study of evolutionary game theory has broad implications across multiple fields of biology, from behavior in social animals to the genetic evolution of species and even human society. Concepts like S, kin selection, and reciprocal altruism are critical to understanding cooperation in nature. This framework enriches our comprehension of how complex social behaviors evolve and helps explain persistent cooperative traits even when direct selfishness might be favored from an individual perspective. Please feel free to ask for more insights into any of the specific aspects mentioned above. You said. Next topic. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Let's move on to the next topic. Since you previously mentioned, I will continue elaborating on evolutionary theory, evolutionary forces, and genetic drift, building a comprehensive framework. Evolutionary forces and genetic drift. Evolutionary forces are the mechanisms that drive changes in the genetic composition of a population over generations. They play a pivotal role in shaping how populations evolve and adapt to their environments. Let's break down the key concepts related to evolutionary forces and genetic drift, the critical aspect of evolutionary dynamics. 1. Forces of evolution. There are 5 main forces or mechanisms that drive evolutionary changes in populations: mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, migration, gene flow, and non-random mating. Together, these forces influence allele frequencies, ultimately resulting in evolution. A. Mutation. Mutation is the original source of genetic variation. It refers to any change in the DNA sequence. These changes may occur spontaneously or due to external factors like radiation or chemicals. Mutations can lead to beneficial mutations. Sometimes mutations are beneficial and enhance survival or reproductive success, increasing their frequency in the population. Neutral mutations. Mutations that do not affect an organism's fitness but contribute to genetic diversity. Harmful mutations. These mutations can decrease an individual's fitness and are typically eliminated from the population by natural selection over time. Mutations are important because they introduce new genetic variants that may potentially be acted upon by natural selection or other evolutionary forces. B. Natural selection. Natural selection is the process by which certain traits become more or less common in a population due to the differential reproduction of individuals with those traits. Key principles of natural selection include variation. There must be variation in traits among individuals in a population. Inheritance. Traits must be heritable to pass down to offspring. Differential survival and reproduction. Individuals with advantageous traits are more likely to survive and reproduce. Natural selection can lead to adaptation, where populations gradually evolve traits that increase their fitness in a particular environment. C. Genetic drift. Genetic drift is a mechanism of evolution that occurs by chance. Unlike natural selection, which is directional, genetic drift is random. It occurs because individuals in a population do not reproduce entirely at random and is more prominent in small populations. There are 2 main processes within genetic drift. The founder effect. This occurs when a small group of individuals breaks away from a larger population to form a new colony. The gene pool of the new population may not be representative of the original one, leading to a loss of genetic variation. The bottleneck effect. This happens when a population experiences a drastic reduction in size due to some event, e.g., a natural disaster. As a result, only a small portion of the population survives, and the genetic diversity may be greatly reduced, influencing future evolutionary pathways. The random nature of genetic drift can lead to allele frequencies in the population being altered in ways that have no relation to an allele's effect on fitness. In the long run, it can contribute significantly to genetic variation, particularly in small populations. D. Migration, gene flow. Gene flow, also known as migration, refers to the movement of individuals between populations. It involves the transfer of alleles between populations due to migration or movement of organisms. This mixing of genetic material can lead to homogenization of populations. If migration occurs frequently, gene flow can reduce the differences between populations by introducing new alleles, making them more genetically similar. Introduction of beneficial alleles. Gene flow may also introduce new genetic variations and potentially beneficial alleles into a population that had previously been geographically isolated. In the absence of barriers to gene flow, populations may evolve in similar directions, losing some of the distinctiveness of local adaptation. E. Non-random mating. Non-random mating occurs when individuals do not mate randomly within a population but are more likely to mate with certain individuals due to factors like kin selection, sexual selection, or assortative mating, similar individuals mating more often. This can affect the distribution of alleles in the population. Positive assortative mating. Individuals with similar phenotypes or genotypes are more likely to mate. Negative assortative mating. Dissimilar individuals are more likely to mate, increasing heterozygosity. While non-random mating may not, by itself, be a force of evolutionary change, it can influence how alleles are distributed and how the next generation evolves. 2. Genetic drift. The details. A. The role of small populations. In small populations, genetic drift plays a more dominant role because random fluctuations in allele frequencies are more pronounced when the population size is small. Over time, genetic drift can cause alleles to either increase or become fixed, reach 100% frequency, by random chance. This random fluctuation can lead to loss of genetic diversity or fixation of harmful alleles. B. Sampling error and genetic drift. In large populations, genetic drift is minimized because the random sampling of alleles averages out over time. However, in smaller populations, the random sampling process becomes much more evident. Sampling error refers to random fluctuations in the genetic pool due to chance alone. Genetic drift becomes particularly noticeable in cases of small population sizes, leading to fixation or loss of alleles purely by random chance rather than fitness advantages. C. Drift versus selection. While natural selection typically acts to increase the frequency of beneficial traits, genetic drift acts more randomly, where traits can increase or decrease in frequency regardless of their impact on fitness. In large populations, natural selection outweighs genetic drift, but in small populations, drift can overwhelm selection. Over long periods, the interaction between selection and drift shapes how adaptive evolution occurs, with genetic drift sometimes reducing the effectiveness of natural selection by randomizing the genetic pool. 3. Practice questions on evolutionary forces and genetic drift. Q1, Gate 2024. In a population of small size, the frequency of an allele can fluctuate over time due to a. Natural selection. B. Migration. C. Genetic drift. D. Non-random mating. Answer. C. Genetic drift. Explanation. In small populations, the effect of genetic drift is stronger, leading to random fluctuations in allele frequency due to chance events. Q2, Gate 2020. The founder effect and bottleneck effect are examples of a genetic drift. B. Natural selection. C. Gene flow. D. Assortative mating. Answer. A genetic drift. Explanation. Both the founder effect and the bottleneck effect are examples of genetic drift, which is more pronounced in small populations. Q3, Gate 2021. Which of the following forces of evolution can increase the frequency of beneficial alleles in a population? A. Mutation. B. Genetic drift. C. Natural selection. D. Non-random mating. Answer. C. Natural selection. Explanation. Natural selection increases the frequency of beneficial alleles because individuals with advantageous traits have higher reproductive success. Conclusion. The study of evolutionary forces is essential to understanding how populations change and adapt over time. Genetic drift, while random, can play a significant role, particularly in small populations, in driving genetic change. Along with natural selection, mutation, migration, and non-random mating, the forces interact in complex ways, shaping how species evolve and survive. Understanding these forces provides insights into everything from species evolution to the dynamics of genetic diseases and the preservation of biodiversity in the face of environmental changes. Let me know if you need further elaboration or another specific topic explained. You said, next topic. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Let's move on to the next topic, population genetics. Population genetics. Population genetics is the study of the genetic composition of populations and how it changes over time and space. It combines concepts from evolutionary biology and Mendelian genetics to understand how various forces, such as natural selection, genetic drift, mutation, and gene flow, influence the genetic makeup of a population. 1. Allele frequencies. The primary unit of population genetics is the allele, a variant of a gene. Allele frequency refers to how often a particular allele appears in a population. It can be calculated using the formula F. A equals number of copies of allele in the population, total number of alleles in the population. F. A equals total number of alleles in the population, number of copies of allele in the population. For a diploid population, where individuals have 2 alleles for each gene, 1 from each parent, the total number of alleles is twice the number of individuals. 2. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. The Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is a fundamental concept in population genetics. It states that allele and genotype frequencies in a population will remain constant from generation to generation in the absence of evolutionary forces. This is an idealized situation and doesn't occur in real populations due to various evolutionary processes. The equation is P2 plus 2PQ plus Q2 equals 1 P2 plus 2PQ plus Q2 equals 1 where P2 equals frequency of the homozygous dominant genotype 2. PQ 2PQ equals frequency of the heterozygous genotype Q. 2Q2 equals frequency of the homozygous recessive genotype P. P and Q. Q are the allele frequencies of the dominant and recessive alleles respectively. Conditions for Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium: no mutation. The alleles do not change or mutate. Random mating. There is no selective mating based on genotype or phenotype. Large population size. This minimizes genetic drift and chance events. No immigration/emigration. No gene flow in or out of the population. No natural selection. All individuals, regardless of genotype, have equal reproductive success. In natural populations, the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is rarely observed, but it serves as a null hypothesis for detecting evolution. Deviations from Hardy-Weinberg expectations signal the action of evolutionary forces. 3. Forces affecting allele frequencies. Several factors influence the allele frequencies in populations, each altering genetic variation in different ways. A. Natural selection. Fitness advantage. Alleles that confer survival or reproductive advantages tend to increase in frequency. Directional selection. Selection that favors one extreme phenotype. Stabilizing selection. Favors the intermediate phenotype, reducing variation. Disruptive selection. Favors both extremes and can lead to two different phenotypes within a population. Natural selection acts to preserve beneficial alleles and remove harmful alleles, which leads to adaptation and evolution of populations over time. B. Genetic drift. Genetic drift refers to random changes in allele frequencies due to chance events, and it's more significant in small populations. Bottleneck effect. A drastic reduction in population size due to an event, e.g., natural disaster leading to a loss of genetic diversity. Founder effect. When a small group of individuals establishes a new population, leading to reduced genetic variation. In both cases, genetic drift reduces genetic diversity and alters allele frequencies randomly. C. Gene flow, migration. Gene flow refers to the transfer of genetic material between populations through migration. It tends to increase genetic diversity within populations and reduce differences between populations. Gene flow can either slow down or speed up adaptation by introducing new alleles into a population. Migration, immigration and emigration can alter allele frequencies, especially in small populations. For example, if a population migrates into a new environment, it can bring in alleles that were previously absent, or if individuals leave, it might reduce genetic diversity in the population they leave. D. Mutation. Mutations introduce new alleles into a population's gene pool. Most mutations are neutral, but some may be beneficial or harmful. Beneficial mutations are likely to spread in a population through natural selection. Neutral mutations may persist in a population because they do not influence an individual's fitness. Harmful mutations are often eliminated from the population through natural selection. Although mutation rates are relatively low compared to other evolutionary forces, they provide the raw material for evolution by increasing genetic variation. 4. Inbreeding and genetic diversity. Inbreeding refers to the mating of individuals that are closely related, which leads to an increase in the number of homozygous individuals in the population. Inbreeding reduces genetic diversity and can increase the expression of deleterious recessive alleles, leading to a phenomenon called inbreeding depression. Inbreeding depression, the reduced fitness in a population due to the expression of harmful recessive alleles, often associated with a loss of genetic diversity. To counter inbreeding depression, outbreeding mating between unrelated individuals is generally favored in populations. 5. Evolution in action. Observations in populations. Evolution in populations can be observed directly in many natural settings. Examples include finch beak size. Galapagos Islands. Research has shown that finch beak size can change rapidly in response to environmental factors like drought. Natural selection acts on the available food sources, favoring birds with the appropriate beak size. Peppered moths. Biston beetleria, a well-known example of industrial melanism, where moths became darker in color due to natural selection during the Industrial Revolution, when soot darkened trees made lighter moths more visible to predators. Both examples demonstrate how allele frequencies change in response to natural selection acting on specific traits within populations. 6. Practice questions on population genetics. Q1, GATE 2022. In Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, if the frequency of homozygous recessive individuals A is 0.16, what will be the frequencies of heterozygous individuals A and homozygous dominant individuals AA? Answer. Given Q. 2 equals 0.16 Q. 2 equals 0.16, we find Q equals 0.4. Q equals 0.4. Since P plus Q equals 1. P plus Q equals 1, P equals 0.6. P equals 0.6. Using the Hardy-Weinberg formula, P2 equals 0.62 equals 0.36 P. 2 equals 0.62 equals 0.36 A2. PQ equals 2, 0.6, 0.4 equals 0.48. 2PQ equals 2, 0.6, 0.4 equals 0.48 A. Thus, the frequency of A equals 0.36, A equals 0.48. Q2, GATE 2021. Which of the following factors can introduce new genetic variation into a population? A. Genetic drift. B. Mutation. C. Natural selection. D. Genetic hitchhiking. Answer. B. Mutation. Explanation. Mutation is the only evolutionary force that introduces new genetic material into a population's gene pool. Other forces like genetic drift, natural selection, and genetic hitchhiking do not introduce new variation, they only alter the frequency of existing genetic variants. Q3, GATE 2020. In a population with a small effective population size, which evolutionary force will likely have the most significant impact? A. Migration. B. Natural selection. C. Genetic drift. D. Mutation. Answer. C. Genetic drift. Explanation. In small populations, genetic drift has a stronger effect than other evolutionary forces like migration, natural selection, and mutation due to the random fluctuation in allele frequencies. Conclusion. Population genetics is the foundation of our understanding of how genetic variation is maintained and evolves in populations. By examining allele frequencies and genetic drift, researchers can discern how different evolutionary forces shape the genetic makeup of species over time. Whether you're considering the impact of natural selection or the random events like genetic drift, understanding these concepts helps explain the dynamic process of evolution. Feel free to ask if you need further clarification or other topics covered. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. The next topic is evolution of brain and behavior. This is a critical area within the behavioral ecology subdomain, exploring how brain evolution influences behavior and the evolutionary processes shaping both. Below is an in-depth exploration, aligned with your requirements. Evolution of brain and behavior. The evolution of brain and behavior is an important aspect of behavioral ecology and evolutionary biology. Behavioral traits are shaped by evolutionary pressures, and the structure and function of the brain play a pivotal role in determining the complexity of behaviors exhibited by an organism. Evolutionary changes in the brain can result from natural selection favoring certain cognitive abilities that aid in survival or reproduction. 1. Evolution of the brain. The brain, as an organ, evolves to meet the specific ecological and social challenges faced by organisms. Over evolutionary time, a greater variety of behaviors has emerged, requiring changes in the brain's structure, especially in relation to cognitive functions, sensory processing, and motor control. 8. Neural complexity and adaptation. Encephalization quotient EQ is a measure of brain size relative to body size, often used to evaluate an animal's cognitive abilities. A larger brain relative to body size suggests enhanced cognitive capabilities. For example, humans have a significantly high EQ, correlating with advanced problem-solving, memory, and social behaviors. Brain plasticity. The human brain, and other animals, displays plasticity, meaning it can change in response to learning and experience. As such, environments exert selective pressures that shape not only brain structures but also their functionality. The hippocampus, important in spatial memory and navigation, evolves in species whose survival depends on such skills, e.g., for migratory birds. Social brain hypothesis. Some theories suggest that a large part of brain evolution, especially in primates, can be attributed to the need for complex social interactions. An increase in the brain size may correlate with the complexity of social groups, leading to evolutionary advantages like improved cooperation and communication skills. 2. Behavior and the evolution of cognitive abilities. Behavior and cognitive functions are intimately linked to the evolutionary development of the brain. Organisms exhibit different types of behavior based on ecological needs, and their nervous systems have evolved to support these activities. 8. Sensory processing and decision-making. Sensory adaptation. Animals develop specialized sensory systems to meet specific needs for survival and reproduction. For instance, bats and dolphins have evolved echolocation, which allows them to detect prey and navigate in dark environments. Similarly, migratory birds have refined magnetic sense in their brains to navigate long distances during seasonal migrations. Learning and memory. Cognitive functions such as learning, changing behavior based on experience, and memory, retaining information for future use, have strong evolutionary significance. For instance, species that need to memorize migration routes or social cues have larger hippocampal regions involved in memory processing. B. Social learning and culture. Social learning is another key behavior influenced by the brain's evolution. It allows individuals to learn from others rather than relying on personal experience. This can be observed in animals like elephants, dolphins, and primates, where group cooperation and survival behaviors are taught from one generation to the next. 3. Evolutionary theories explaining behavior. Multiple theoretical frameworks offer explanations for the adaptive nature of behavior through evolutionary lenses. A. Kin selection. Kin selection is the theory that individuals can increase their genetic success not only by reproducing but by helping close relatives also reproduce. This is because individuals share a percentage of their genes with family members, and by assisting relatives, individuals can increase the number of copies of their genes in the next generation. The idea was put forth by William Hamilton and is formalized by Hamilton's rule. RB and GT, C. RB and GT, C where R equals the relatedness between the helper and the beneficiary, B equals the benefit gained by the recipient, C equals the cost to the helper. This rule helps explain behaviors such as altruism, helping others without obvious personal benefit, observed in certain social insects, e.g., worker bees or ants. B. Sexual selection. Sexual selection is another evolutionary force that influences behavior. The sexual selection theory proposed by Charles Darwin suggests that certain traits evolve because they are attractive to the opposite sex. This can lead to sexual dimorphism, where males and females of the same species exhibit different traits, e.g., peacock's tail. Mate choice. Certain brain regions involved in reward and decision-making, such as the dopaminergic system, play a role in mate choice. Female organisms of many species evaluate potential mates based on certain traits, e.g., size, strength, vocalizations, and males display these traits to attract mates. Intersexual competition. Often, males compete with one another for access to females, and this competition can result in behavioral and morphological traits, e.g., antlers in deer or large canines in lions. See cognitive evolution and evolution of behavior. Cognitive evolution refers to the process by which cognitive abilities, learning, memory, reasoning evolve to meet the organism's environmental needs. Over time, the development of decision-making capabilities, problem-solving, and tool use has led to better survival rates, influencing brain structure and behavior in many species. 4. Practice questions on evolution of brain and behavior. Q1, GATE 2022. Which of the following brain regions is primarily involved in spatial memory and navigation? A. Hippocampus. B. Amygdala. C. Cerebellum. D. Medulla. Answer. A. Hippocampus. Explanation. The hippocampus is critical for processing spatial memory and navigation. It plays a significant role in storing and recalling information about environmental space and locations, which is especially important for migratory animals. Q2, GATE 2021. Which evolutionary theory explains the evolution of cooperation between closely related individuals? A. Kin selection. B. Group selection. C. Sexual selection. D. Natural selection. Answer. A. Kin selection. Explanation. Kin selection suggests that an individual may assist closely related relatives, sharing a portion of their genes, to enhance their own genetic representation in the population, increasing their evolutionary fitness. Q3, GATE 2020. What brain region is essential for cognitive flexibility, decision-making, and social behavior, particularly in primates? A. Frontal cortex. B. Temporal lobe. C. Thalamus. D. Basal ganglia. Answer. A. Frontal cortex. Explanation. The frontal cortex is responsible for cognitive functions, including planning, decision-making, impulse control, and complex social behavior, all critical for primate social interactions and problem-solving. Conclusion. The evolution of brain and behavior is a multifaceted area of research involving brain structure, cognitive processes, social interactions, and evolutionary pressures. From the neural adaptations that shape sensory processing to the emergence of cognitive strategies for complex behaviors like social cooperation and sexual selection, the brain's evolution is intricately linked with behavior. Understanding these processes provides insights into the adaptive significance of brain and behavior, which drives natural selection and the evolutionary success of species. Feel free to ask more specific questions if needed. You said, list completed. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Yes, the major topics on ecology and evolution that we have been discussing are now complete. Here's a recap. Recall comprehension, application, analysis, and synthesis. You have been provided with detailed theory notes and relevant practice questions with answers for each of the topics. If you'd like me to revisit or go deeper into any specific topic or area, feel free to ask. Otherwise, you're all set for this section. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. You've hit the free plan limit for GPT-4 Pro. Responses will use another model until your limit resets after 7:24 p.m. Get Plus.